Hello,
everybody. Hey, everybody.
hello, everybody. I know you haven't seen me in a while.
We we have big things coming for Erudition as of late. All of us have gathered together to answer some questions to the best of our ability for this history Q&A.
And also, I just want to apologize for not being in here for the 2 months. And on the 2 month video, I accidentally said I want to make more than a certain YouTuber could do in 10 years. I just meant 1 mil. I am so sorry for or any confusion.
Well, it's good to aspire to have big dreams, Matthew. So, not to apologize for that.
We have 42 subscribers. If you could please, subscribe to Eddie's Erudition.
Yes, please subscribe to the Erudition Network. It helps us out a lot. And support us on Facebook. And if you want, we have our Cash App that runs down in the back. Whatever you donate to us there will definitely help us out. It's for those donations that we are actually able to tell you that we are planning to do a show. Uh, it's called Moments of Black History, or Black History in Moments. And my brothers and myself will be hosting that show. Our plan is to get that done around 5 days a week. So if you aren't able to watch that program on the weekday, you will be able to catch up or continue watching on the weekend. As always, this Q&A session will not be going anywhere. This is happening habitually every Thursday as scheduled, regardless of Black History in Moments or not. But that's kind of what was we were having the works coming to you all. Sorry for the
Now, as for what Tay just said, we're trying to do the moments in Black history. So what we're going to mostly study is we're mostly going to pick up people from out of history books and talk mostly about what most people may not know. So if you don't know much about if you know about Martin Luther King, we'll talk a bit more in detail about his achievements and how they led up to our moment in history. And we'll be going on from there from Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King, Harriet Tubman. Some
Louis,
people you know and some people you know.
such as Louis Latimer, how he contributed to the light bulb,
I was gonna say
how we have Dick Gregory, who has how he has contributed. All these people that may go unknown to some, we want to be able to let people understand how African American society has benefited America and the world in general, because it's kind of hidden and unknown. So what we're going to we want to just get that out there, that the reason, sorry for the tardiness, but that's kind of what we had in the works. Well, what thank you for listening to what we had to say on regards to works in general. Now, I think we've delayed it enough. Let's get into
today's event.
today's lesson. I think
Oh yeah.
the topic that we had on the last Q&A, we want to talk about go more into, from our perspective, what a movement and protest are, because I feel like we've lost that. I don't feel that we have. I know we have. We've lost what movement and protest were supposed to be about. We have when we watch the news, and because we sit down as a family and we will watch the news, which may be uncommon to hear because even adults and from who I have talked to, they have constantly said we don't want our kids to be they don't want their kids to be in the know of what's going on in the world because of the evils that go on. That's why we want to have age diversity from little to
A bit older.
a bit older. Thank you for that. I'm not old. But
I'm not saying you're old. I'm just saying you've grown a mustache.
Well,
they
anyway,
always clown me for that
eh,
mustache. But when we have what does movement and protest mean to you all? How do they differ? Do you know what we mean by a movement and a protest?
yes.
We'll give you a minute for that, and then we're here for what Papa thinks about.
No, let's hear from Matthew first, since he's the youngest in the group.
Okay. As you heard from the last video that I was in 2 months ago, I was talking.
You were talking about movement and protest?
No, I was talking about the black family.
Wait, Matthew, we're talking about
Oh yeah.
protests at the moment.
Movement and
We can
protest.
go ahead and loop in Black family because I'm pretty sure because it does have something to do with the Black family a bit.
Okay, as the youngest, I will be excusing myself from that part for now.
Okay. Well, that's all right. Maybe what Papa says will influence you. Papa, what do you think about movement and protest?
Well, the thing about movement and protest is at the same time of being movement is supposed to be everybody gathered around a certain cause. A protest is people doing something to stop the cause, to stop the freaking the action that they don't like being shown at the moment. So they do a movement so everybody can gather around and everybody's voice can be heard. But a protest is them actively doing something the to stop what's going on. So at the same time of being but the problem with protests is people are now seeing protests as riots and raves and all this horrible stuff because every single time there's a protest, somebody's talking about windows are breaking, they're talking about businesses being destroyed, merchandise being stolen, and they're talking about how it's because the movement, it's because of the protests. But I don't really think it's that.
Well, but that's kind of what we're talking. Why I brought up this topic. We have lost that point of a movement that we think that protest is supposed to be violent and rioting, and we don't. Ah, there's Grandma. Hey,
Hey,
great grandma.
Hi.
Grandma, none of this hard. Good evening to you too, Regina.
good
That's her.
evening to all of you, and happy holidays because Christmas is coming. And Hanukkah, as we all know. Hope everybody's going to have a good holiday and a safe one.
Fahim Will says movement is an engagement designed to express or achieve something that may not necessarily relate around common goals.
Thank you for telling me that. Or just saying that.
That's that is. And the reason we call that a movement is because you are actively moving towards that achievement that you wish to express. We know that in the in Black America, we are very aware of the two Americas, especially with the presidency that of Trump. We live out in the country, and it was very scary because people lose a sense of themselves from blind trust.
Yeah.
And when we were watching the news, we had saw earlier that, oh, we were just, the president told me to do so. So it was
I
very,
keep on yawning.
it was rather scary to think about all all of that. But that's why it needed to be pressed that this is not the norm. And we needed to start a movement of, we are not livestock just for you to slay. We have purpose. You have not treated us right. And but when we protest, we should not be trying to instantly resort to violence. Regina says a protest is when you show your disagreement of something physically. A movement is a product of protest that caused a thing to change from what you protest move to improve. Yeah, that's I think Regina hit it on the head.
Yep.
Your movement is inspired by your protest. But if you push, oh, we're going to be violent, what you are moving towards is violence. You are giving them an excuse to hunt you.
I'm joking.
We have killed the integrity of the movement in a way, because we look back at, what I do is that me and Papa, we watch documentaries with our father. I know, aren't kids supposed to be watching cartoons or movies? We enjoy watching documentaries, how we got to where we are today. So when we were watching the documentary of how Martin Luther King would inspire a march, because he wasn't just the main contributor. For many, yes, there was faces of a protest that led to that movement, but you he was only one, and he gathered the right group of many that accomplished the goal. So he would go into the church and say, okay, here's what we're going to do. We are going to lead a march. Everyone that you saw in that march was well suited. They didn't look like they came from the street. They got a suit. They went out there and marched. They weren't violent, because back then, if you were violent, showed any parts of aggression, they would welcome that.
And along with that, they couldn't get anybody with a criminal record, because if 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 well, if racist angry white Americans saw that there was a felon or a thug or somebody with a criminal history on TV in this march, they would be able to say, "Hey, that person committed a crime. Why would we give a criminal rights to go to have this, to have a house, to own land, to have a business, to even move into our neighborhoods when they have committed horrid acts?" And even if it was as simple as robbing a store because they couldn't afford something, they would still use that against you and say you're teaming up with a thief, a robber, a murderer. And as long as that's true, they're not going to allow you to have your rights.
And that is true. And when But think about it. They already didn't want you to have the rights. That's why you're protesting. But if you're not going to do so in the right way, if you're not going to do so peacefully, the peace was a tactic to show to America, hey, we did nothing to provoke any of this wrong, but still you're killing us. Still you're treating us wrong. Then it makes you out to be the villain.
And that's the
And
problem with
that's what the movement was supposed to be.
Okay,
We are being treated wrong. Go on, Matthew.
think about some movies. If you never see you sometimes see some white villains. Why is this? Because as I believe that as some white people want to say, nah, the black person should be the villain. I actually watched a video about uh, something and saying in which color is more pretty. I don't remember. I don't remember if it was handsome or pretty, the black one or the white one. And it said, and white, almost every person shows white. Some shows black. But from that study that I watched, I was like, dang. And then I watched another study on the human brain, and not the actual human brain, how it functions. I watched this and it showed people with masks on their face. This I ain't talking about Squid Game. People with masks on their face so they don't see their identity, and they're controlling this one person's life,
ah,
not death or life. It just gets weird if they choose things, and I don't know how it ended. It just ended horrible.
yeah, so I remember seeing something about that on YouTube once. It was a game show where they put masks on their face and they wanted to see how people would react if
That's what it's called, the Clark doll experiment.
ah
We had just finished. Me personally, within college, we had just looked at that, the Clark doll experiment. How children, black children, were to see themselves as not pretty. Which, and as that says, the Clark doll experiment, which wanted to show the that blacks chose white as their acceptable color, which that right there, and that is a psychological study, and that is what we can see of whitewashing, where you are basically conditioned to not accept who you are because you're trying to appeal to somebody else. You are, Regina says.
Okay,
Regina goes on to say, you are correct, Eddie. However, that stance was hypercritical because that's why the KKK wore hoods over their faces to not be identified.
oh,
They were major police. Yes, they were many things under those hoods. But why did they feel like they had to cower behind those hoods? Because they knew that what they were doing was wrong. And if that, or they didn't want to be held liable for the evil that they were doing. Yeah, it is hypocritical. But when you think about it, that's what really scares me about what happened with the insurrection at the Capitol. Because when you are bold and not afraid of any repercussion, you don't cover your face. You go in there with an idea of, this is what I'm going to do. the KKK wore hoods because they didn't want to face the consequences in their professional uh lives, so they wore the hoods to protect themselves from the evil or whatever they were doing.
I,
But when the insurrection happened at the Capitol, nobody, very few, because of COVID, wore masks, and others, they were just bold enough to just be there. That's what is very scary about racism. The fact that you can be bold enough to say, this is no white, my color is better, and therefore I am right. And because if that is your mindset, and black people go, well, I like the Clark Doll experiment. Well, white is better. I prefer that more. And you don't really like yourself for what you are, then that we have a major problem right there alone.
I just want to real quick.
They did not want people. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm just trying to
Okay,
read
you
this.
finish.
They didn't want the people that worked for them to poison their food, like the movie The Help. Haven't seen The Help. It sounds like a good movie to watch later on.
Okay, I just want to say, from the Clock Doll experience, is after watching that, if you feel like black is not a color and you're black, act you're feeling depressed, you're like, I'm not good enough. Do not feel like that. You are loved and appreciated. Thank you for your time for watching this show. And while you're at it,
That's why.
how about you click that subscribe button right there?
But that is. But you do make a good point. But sometimes we tend to overdo it, Matthew. We really overcompensate, and that's really why we lose. Which is why what the topic of the situation was is you're losing the movement because when you have a good heart, your heart is in the right place, and then you set forth, and you may be taking the right steps, but somewhere along the way, you lose what it meant, and due to that, you say, well, I'm not good enough. And then you go, okay, well, I'm going to encourage others to be like that. I'm going to amp up their spirit so that they don't feel as down as I am. But then we overcompensate.
Yeah, but the problem with that is if you start powering up if you're like, well, I need to empower all these other people because I don't feel good about myself, then the problem is you can't half do a thing if you're going to be oh no.
Ah, there's Mom. Now, as modern news reports, they were slacks.
I'm trying
That
not.
is
I'm trying not to bend my back like this, but it's very hard once you start getting focused into things.
We used to work in their house. It's that we used to work in their houses and cook their meals. Yes, they didn't want to hear. They didn't want people that worked for them to poison their food. Ah, that's what he meant. I'm sorry, folks. The comments are lagging. Oh my God, not like Angel. Yes, it's so. I think, but before I lose my train of thought, I think what we should talk about is what do I mean by overcompensation? It's like a tech character to help you appreciate it.
Okay,
But
hey,
I think we should definitely talk more about what we mean by overcompensation because we see it, but we don't really acknowledge it, do we? What I mean by we overcompensate is a lot of movements, the feminist movement, the black movement, we the gay movement even, or
we do
alphabet
not
people.
talk about that one.
Yeah, yeah.
Sorry, it's a bit
Don't
controversial. I want to.
don't want to do that. But we those movements, when we talk about those movements, we tend to overcompensate and we go, okay, well, because we know it's a problem, but we don't really know how to fully address it and to the extent. So what we go and do is we say, okay, well, you have more power, we should get you somewhere. But then we say, okay, well, this one trumps the other. So we have three movements working against each other and more movements all at the same time because we have the QAnon, we see it all the time on the news. If we are not honest about with today's ever-growing world of technology, then we are doing ourselves a disservice. Anything you are acceptable to anything if you don't have knowledge. And you can access anything on the internet. Anything that you can imagine is out there. People have always had power, should not people that have always had power should not decide the movement for those that have none.
I
That is
I
true.
completely agree with that because it's the equivalent of getting a rich person to talk about poor people problems. You can't tell them, oh, let's talk about the problems of the poor while you're still rich and you can go to 5-star restaurants every day, go use as much water as you wish, but you can't even, but the poor person has to conserve water that even, and right now that's the biggest problem. There's people who are living in their RVs, in their cars, living on the street, and they're trying to fight and say, "Hey, we need some money, we need some help, we need soup, we need all this food, and we need budget." And people are like, "No, you had that chance," and everybody keeps saying, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, and it's like, how are you going to do that when there's no bootstraps left for you to grab onto anymore? Now everybody's in the same situation. The money problem of one person is now your money problem, and you would think, well, the people who are out here were flipping burgers and they were working in stores and they were barely making any at all. And that was the problem to begin with. They had no money to deal with with their financial problems in the first place. So now they're trying to hoist themselves up. And people are always talking about what about soup kitchens? What about this? What about that? But it's like you can't do any of that anymore because without enough, you have too many people who need food. You have too many people who need, but when you're looking at the rich and you're talking to them and you're like, well, I need this. The same goes with being black in America. What's going to happen when everybody is being served the same way? You're going to feel a certain way. You're going to be like, man, I'm
Exactly.
poor, but and this black person's poor, and now we're both in the same place because now they see us as equal. I'm as such, they see us as trash, and we can't do anything about it anymore.
Hey, mom says we must stop looking at what people wearing and listening to what they are saying. Yes, that is true. We also overcompensate with things. We tend to equate ourselves to self. Yes, that's too true. It is hard to pull yourself up by the bootstraps when you ain't got no boots. That Yeah, you did say a mouthful with that because
But that
too long for too we don't really think about what they what is their fear of seeing us as equal.
thing.
That is why they don't see us as equal because they're going to be in the same bed that they refuse to lay in.
Oh,
But mom says good point about money problems being more similar now, especially during this pandemic.
think who came to this land first. Our people came to the land first, but I know this is a little off topic, but it's gonna go back on topic, I promise. Came to the land, we came to this area of first, and some people came second, and we allowed them, and guess what they done? They killed us, they put us on jail, they they don't take care of us. They treat us unfairly. They put us in a jail. Oh, and I'm like, after watching the news, you don't even get them. You don't even give them a chance. Instead of execution, any of that, you just go, hey, and then you shoot a gun. You say, I'm gonna pull out a teaser. It's a gun. Uh,
Yeah.
a human life is not like an experiment. You should not just go and use it up.
Good job, bro. Yeah,
Very good.
that is true. They do use us as an experiment. It is difficult to exercise freedom when the collective doesn't really know what freedom is. Everything about black intelligence. I'm sorry, can't pronounce words. Intellectualism begins with Caucasian and European fantasy. Dang it, cut off. Oh, that's why we ask for everything instead of establishing what we truly want. I'm sorry, that comment came in very weird. But that is true. They Do you know how taxes have come about? When people came from Europe over here to America to be free, they met off of black people's back or off of natives' back. Somebody else was going to be doing the heavy lifting. Taxes came about because you people had rights. You no longer had slaves. And when you don't have slaves and somebody that will cook your meals, as Dad had said, or you have somebody that can cater to you, you no longer have free labor. So your wealth now has to go to paying those people that are working. And now the government is not getting enough money. So now they tax you. And they really don't like those taxes. Because if you look around the time that taxes was formed, it was roughly around the end of slavery. Well, before indentured slavery, because you still had that going on, where they would pay you and you were contracted to work for them, but indentured servitude was still a problem. But chattel slavery was not.
My back is killing
Eddie
me.
Phillips Matty reminds me of Gabriel. Love it.
Thank you.
Good job, Matthew. And yet, unfortunately, people have been in experiments for a very long time. This pandemic seems like a long human experiment.
Okay, but I know why people would experiment on alive people, because when they're dead, all of their or everything is gone.
Well, not necessarily, Matthew. Technically, when a person passes, all that knowledge is spread on. Like for instance, Dad talks about the man, I forgot. The indigenous people, the people who were here before. I forgot their names. Man.
They're Native Americans.
Yeah, I know, but I just can't remember. He's mentioned a few of them.
For those of you that have stuck with the program throughout the year, hard to believe it's already about to be a year that Erudition has been on the air. But for those of you that have been with us, you know that this is the first time for us running the show. That is because our father is a 100% disabled veteran. He served our country diligently. My mother has been, and ourselves have been taking care of our father ever since he had
No, I'm not doing that.
a fall. So he's not feeling very well after that. But he is helping us through watching his influence, and which is why we feel like we can run the channel in his stead. But our mother is helping him. He is expected to make a recovery. He is okay. But just in case you were wondering why
Yeah, why it's
why is
all we three doofuses. As
that's why.
yeah,
Yeah, I can say this is these two are smart. I'm still learning, but they teach me that makes my brain bigger, and it will go bigger than theirs.
Well, that's what you're supposed to
if
do.
your head grows
That
that
is
big, Matthew, we have
Look,
that is why. But
what
that is why we have
this
erudition.
afro?
Erudition. When you
Mm.
when you see the erudition logo, the brain kind of looks like a tree. You're you are supposed to pour in. What do you do with a tree? You feed it. Even though you may never sit under the shade of that tree, somebody else will, and that's why you you grow that tree. So when we are learn from our parents or past experiences from history, and we give that to you, you can go out and teach your generation, hopefully, what what our history was about, why we shouldn't forget it. Y'all are doing a great job with the show, Sean Anthony.
Hey, I never said we were doing a bad job with the show. Just saying, we're not as I wouldn't say that we're as good as our father. Our father teaches us a lot about history, and we have many discussions about it. Whenever the news comes on, we're always up next to the TV talking about the events, talking about how all of talking about history, watching documentaries. We're always talking in this house, and that's what we encourage everybody else
And
to do.
that's what inspired us to create the channel, because we always have a talking point in this house, because that's just who we are. Our mom, even when dad's at work, she'll have us watch the news and say, look at what's going on with the world. Even though at times, we'll be honest, because we're people too, we sometimes go, that is depressing. We're not doing that today. Because it's a lot of doom and gloom in the world, but we need to understand how we got to that point so that we can avoid future consequences. Each each one teaches one. I am because you are. Yes, that that is that is what we as Black people do. We are. I am because you are.
I, I'm
And if that is why history is needed. That there's really no other way to put it. History is needed. Lots of people keep. I have heard very disturbing things. There was a meme. I'm not sure if you've seen it, but it said, "History is not there to make you feel good. It is truthful, and if it hurts your feelings, good. You're less likely to repeat it then." And when I went into the comments to go and comment and say how that was agreeable, you saw nothing but a flood of, yeah, that's why we should leave it alone. Or they those were people of their time. And then a normal person, they probably would have been like, oh, I'm not going to say anything. That discouraged me. I'll be in the wrong crowd. No, sometimes you have to be that outlier that goes in there and tells them, no, this is needed. And you don't avoid conflict. because you don't think that you can win.
But hold up. I'm
Some
gonna add
people,
something to what you just said, Teddy. Because, yeah, I agree. Some parts of history are doom and gloom. There's a lot of plagues, there's a lot of abuse, racism. There's a lot of stuff in history. However, there's a lot of technology and experiences in history as well. There's the creation of the compass. There's the spread of the empire. There's many things in history that are incredibly nice and friendly. When you talk about the Mayans, the Aztecs, you think about, man, they were wiped out. But you should think, what did they create? Think about the stone heads. They created that. They were exquisite bronze workers. The Indians, they knew the land. They helped people cross over the land. The indigenous people, they helped trade. They did a lot of stuff. And even though some Europeans and white Americans may say, well, we did nothing, our ancestors did nothing but hurt. No, your ancestors helped prove a point to the world. Slowly but surely, your ancestors, even though they were racist, even though they hurt a lot of indigenous people, they did show the world this is wrong. And many of them did not stand for it. That's why we had civil war. But it was also for, money and other purposes. But at the same time, it was because they wanted the slaves to be free. We had many presidents. But mostly Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln helped free the slaves. But slowly, other presidents built upon what Abraham Lincoln had started in order to grow and help slaves along the way. If it wasn't for the start of racism, if it wasn't for the start of Abraham Lincoln, if it wasn't for history in general, you wouldn't be able to learn. Black people wouldn't be free, and you wouldn't have as many discoveries as you would. You need maps, you need compasses, you need the stars, you need all this stuff, because without it, you're just left in the dark. You have nothing left.
and that is true, because without the past, you wouldn't have things to look at for the future. Sean Anthony is preaching to you all. African, Phoenicians, Aztecs, Mayans, Anglo-Saxons have to work together. You make me proud.
This is true. And also,
because think about it, you said about Abraham Lincoln. Without Abraham Lincoln, there would be no USS Grant.
I keep on
Much helped to end that segregation, because he didn't have to do what he did for that little girl that was trying to go to school.
Okay, but
because I don't think you know about this, Matthew, but they were trying. The girl was around your age, or was just under it. But in the age of segregation, they didn't want black and whites going to school, to the same school at that. So she went up to the school and they threatened to kill her. Could you imagine a whole crowd marching outside this house, just waiting for you to catch you slipping, so that they can take you and kill you? They have all these dolls. Something about racism. I kind of feel like if you really broke down sexism, racism, ageism, you could classify it as a mental illness. Somebody should just go in and say, I have the isms. And it would definitely make, oh, he has the isms. But as of right now, they were trying to kill a little girl. And it's like, for a color, you would go and try and kill him. And
I actually did say this in a previous video. How are you fighting over a color? I was actually mad because why are you fighting over a color? A simple color. Color. Imagine this: white and black fight.
That says it was Ruby Bridges was only 6 years old, and they threw stones and attacked blacks in anger.
What?
But without USS Grant, the federal troops wouldn't have gotten involved because the governor was racist. He wanted segregation to continue,
But
and he sent the he sent state troops down there, but state troops don't trump the federal guard.
okay,
So they guarded her into the school. But
let's let him continue because
yeah, I just want to say that.
Okay, but I keep
Okay.
having this one thought in my head. We take out a board game and then we all play it, and we stream it. I keep on having that one thought. But going back on topic, yes, as fighting over a color is stupid, but getting people to strain to do that, okay, hey, that's just on another level.
But it's the same.
Coming through
It's
my
the same
mind.
way that our parents interact.
Uh,
Our parents teach us things about history that we would not otherwise know. Because if you're honest, you're not taught it in school, and if you are not taught it, you sure ain't looking for it. So that's why we provide erudition, so that we give you what people may be withholding from you because it's taboo. We don't really want to talk about it. That says, remember, Ruby Ridges is only 67 years old today. That was not that long ago. And somewhere along the lines, we were talking about that. We were just sitting there talking about how we have a very big misconception with time. Time is really not that long ago.
oh yeah.
I mean, not time, but that time that they're talking about, oh, they were men of their time, that wasn't really that long ago. That's what I mean. It really was not all that long ago. You had the 60s. We were talking about Bill Cosby. Bill Cosby was in the 60s, apparently just getting his groove on with 40 plus women. And I'm just sitting there like that. When you look at history, that ain't factual. Because if he was doing that and he was blacklisted by Nixon, the president himself,
This is true.
was and William Ford. So he was already on their crap list. So you mean to tell me they would not have pulled up? Oh yeah, he just not only was he getting his feels on, but he was married while doing it. And you mean to tell me they wanted to strip the Cosby Show off of there, strip him of his title of being a doctor, stopped him from even getting that title? You mean there was nothing at all, but he was doing all this in the 60s nonetheless, where they would have killed him. He'd have been missing. What we would have known to Bill Cosby for today is a man that had an idea of stand-up comedian that unfortunately body was found somewhere, because that has been known to happen with a lot of black people. We have to remember with Emmett Till, they found his body. That was a boy. Do you not think they would have killed a grown man? And they've been known to drag people through the streets. That would not have happened.
I believe they would kill.
But again, with the overcompensation for overcompensating for these movements. Yes, the Me Too movement is a movement. I
see you click off.
Women are raped within
you're down there.
Professional. Women are raped within professional organizations or sexually assaulted. But when we go, okay, we're going to punish you severely. Yes, you are making they're trying to make a statement of, no, you will never do this again. But we overcompensate on how we should go about that. And then we go, well, we're going to ruin your integrity, we're going to ruin your life, we're going to do everything in your power, and they don't even have the right person. We were watching a, a movie about that last night, where the little girl's sister was 5 years old. Even though it was a fictional story, it still has relevance to today and how that works. In the movie, her 5-year-old sister had killed a cop, but she took the blame because she loved her enough and spent 20 years of her life away from her sister. But because of that, but because they had took away her sister for so long, they never knew each other. So how does that play in to what happens today? We will destroy your life over a rumor or what we believe, and we will definitely hold you to it, and we will act accordingly.
I mean,
But should we? And it should, but we are not open-minded. Nothing about what we live through as Black people tells us that is ever going to be a situation. That's why we have to learn our history. We have to try to have an open mind and understand that there are two sides to a story that you didn't just happen by happenstance. Mom says when people stop allowing positive emphasis to be on the heady things that are done and give more positive emphasis to positive things, we're taking back the power to move forward in a positive manner. And that is true. If you put positive into the atmosphere, then you will get positive. That's why we can't be having violence in our movements. We can't be having negative biases that we've already fixed our mind on what they've done, and there's no way to move around because we're still angry.
I mean, but hold on.
Hi, Daniel.
I'm going to revisit what you said, Teddy. When you said when you were talking about rumors, I agree with that because it's true. When the rumors go around and somebody believes that they judge a person by the rumors. However, when they see themselves, like for instance, the riot at the Capitol, when you see yourself actually doing something and it's no longer a rumor and it's absolute and it's not good, it's absolutely disgraceful, and you're thinking, but how can you, this is my question, how can you believe a rumor and you see somebody do something absolutely horrid, but you say, well, that person looks like me, so I'm going to accept that they did it for a right cause. So how can you, and then because you don't like this person or you just heard something, you don't even know this person, but since you heard a rumor, now you have decided that person's no good for me. That person is absolutely not. And that's where we get that's where Matthew goes into talking about, that's where that's where I'm going to revisit what Matthew said. Because Matthew said when you teach people when you teach people how to hate people, that's a whole nother thing. And I agree. Because if you're going with rumors and you're going off of what your grandmama said, what your granddad said, what your great grandmama said, what are you getting? You're getting rumors. You're getting bits and pieces of a puzzle, and you're judging a person that you've never even met who's walking across the street, and you're thinking that person is no good for me because of what my great great grandmama said to my great grandma.
And
that's the lesson that I've been taught.
But that's exactly what Jane Elliott was saying. We just build a better myth.
Okay, but
because I'm not satisfied with the results of what happened years before. So I'm going to stretch the truth a bit, and we're going to make this happen. So then you instill hate in your kids. We are blessed enough that we are we gay we how do I put it? We have both knowledge and empathy for people. That was not taught back then, and that's what I mean by it wasn't all that long ago that happened. The 60s was not that far away because most of those people are still alive. Bill Cosby is 83 years old. That's not even 100 years out. It's not, oh, they were men of their time. That's, oh wow. Philosophers have long concluded, conceded. However, that every man has two educators that which is given to him, and the other that which he gives himself. Of the two kinds, the latter is by far the most desirable. Indeed, all that is most worthy in a man, he must work out and conquer for himself. It is that which constitutes our real and best nourishment. What we are merely taught Sodom nourishes the mind. I don't know why it keeps cutting off. Nourishes the mind like that which we teach ourselves. Carter G. Woodson. Carter G. Woodson is as Dad said, the father of Black history. It is why we can search our history and trace it back to a point. What were you trying to say, Matthew?
After I brung up a lot of experiments is with the white people, not a body experiments, and I mean the mind experiment. And we all know that they're not gonna stop. They're gonna keep on going, and they're gonna keep on going until Jason.
Well,
Well,
there's always a psychological aspect of it. There's always a psychological aspect of it, but we can get into that later, Matthew. You all had some great points, but unfortunately, we're getting around to the hour.
Yes.
Yes, I know. It's hard to believe it went by that fast.
well,
I mean, we all had some really good topics to talk about, though.
But that's what we do in our house, right? We talk, but there is no time limit. But unfortunately, it is around that hour, and I hope that we were able to provide some form of knowledge to you all from just our age group. As we mature, I'm sure our views will change and we'll get better, but there's always room to learn. Even the oldest man is still learning something.
okay. Hey, hit that.
And thus our motto,
Hit the like button and hit the subscribe button.
Let's learn together.
And make sure or you leave a comment. We like to hear your opinions. And